Aloha and welcome to Remote Promote. For those of you joining us for the first time, Remote Promote is a project that was created with an interest in supporting business owners and entrepreneurs with the online communities, and that the online communities would be surprised and delighted at the talents and treasures that they have found here. So today, it is my honor to introduce to you JM Ryerson. Welcome, JM, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Maureen. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So JM is an entrepreneur and a mindset coach who has been building companies and leading sales teams for over 20 years. He's the founder and CEO of Let's Go Win, whose mission is to increase leadership, enhance culture, and help teams achieve peak performance. He is also an amazing best-selling author and host of Transcend and Life podcast. Wow, JM, that's quite the introduction. So delighted to have you here today.
I'm excited. Thanks for having me. It'll be fun.
Yeah, super great. Okay, so first question is, can you share with us in a nutshell, what is it that you do?
So I'm a mindset, performance, and leadership coach. What I really spend a lot of times with is twofold. I work with teams to make sure that they increase their leadership, they enhance their culture, and then overcome their self-limiting beliefs. Most recently, a lot of that, obviously, with the way the world is going today, focus a lot on mindset and making sure that we're taking care of ourselves, our mind, body, and our soul. And one of the things people tend not to do is take care of their mind. So a lot of mindset work happens frequently, and it's something that I'm constantly working with them on so that their routines and their habits, so that they're set up to show up as the best version of themselves.
And how do you actually do that? How do you solve this problem?
First thing is to figure out what is our routine. Are we actually running the agenda coming through our inner dialogue? Because there's a lot of potential for the outside world to do that for us, whether you're watching CNN or Fox, it really doesn't matter which side. Is it your agenda or is it their agenda? And so really being cognizant of how are you feeding your mind? What are you doing to make sure that you are showing up as the best version of yourself? And so putting these routines in place, the habits in place so that every single day you show up and you give it your very, very best. It's not complex, but it is by design and it's not haphazard.
Okay. And what had you initially inspired to do this? And you've been doing it for a long time. What had you inspired initially and what keeps you going here?
The initial inspiration came from, I have two boys, 14 and 11. And when I wrote the book, it was all for them because I wanted the lessons from my parents, my grandparents, authors, mentors of mine, really lessons that I had learned. I wanted to make sure that if I passed away in a bus crash or whatever, that my kids had these lessons. So that started me on the path of writing the book. And the gal I was working with at the time said, I didn't think you were selfish. And I said, I didn't think I was either. What do you mean? She says, if you only share these ideas, these principles with two human beings, you're selfish. All right, lesson learned. I hear you loud and clear. That sent me on the path of not only continuing to write and publish the book, but then to really start outsourcing and helping people do this because it wasn't necessarily what I was doing for a living. I was taking care of my teams in my small box, but there's other people out there that I could help. So that's been the inspiration. I try not to have the word hate in my life, but I hate self-limiting beliefs. So when I hear people talk about them, I want them to know they can do so much more if we can just work on their mindset to really help them overcome them.
No, that's so great. That's so great. And in this industry that you're in, what would you say is it that sets you apart?
I think it's just the simplicity of what I do. So often you'll hear people say, you have to do these 12 things or 10 things. Well, once you get past 5, it's really hard to remember even the first 2 or 3. So everything I do, you'll hear, I'll talk about 3 things and really focusing in on those 3 things. So I think that's one thing that definitely differentiates me. The other thing is vulnerability. It's the first chapter of the book. It's something I wasn't necessarily taught growing up. I was taught boys don't cry. But I know that, and it was one of the most profound lessons I learned in my professional career, is not wearing masks, truly being my authentic self, that is so freeing, and I want everybody to experience that. So those would be the two differentiators for most. I am exactly who I'm going to give you 100% of who I am, and I'm not going to hide anything. It is who I am versus I have to show up a certain way, look a certain way. Look, I'm going to give you 100% of me, and that's a guarantee. So that would be one of the other differentiators.
Okay, thank you. And do you have any tips to share with business owners and entrepreneurs? What would say your top 2 tips for being successful are?
Well, the first one is be clear on your cultural values. And I know that's been a hot topic for at least the last decade or so. But if I ask most of the clients I work with, when I ask, hey, what are your cultural values of your company? It's rare that I can get even more than 2 out of 10 that know the values. So get clear with those, especially in a work environment. What are those? And I really press, if you're my client, we're going to work on about 3 cultural values. And by the way, that would be the same in the home. So getting it down to 3, because I didn't always do that. I used to have 6 cultural values in one of my companies. Somebody said, okay, what are they? And I could think of 5. And I was so bright at that time, I decided to add a 7th on stage as I'm speaking. Well, that was a bad decision. And so we limited it and got back to 3 that are digestible and repeatable. So that would be one of the tips. A second tip, be mindful of creating momentum, especially in today's environment. There's enough negativity out there. There's plenty of things that are going to bring you adversity, and let's create some momentum, because I know this. If you're trying to jump over a 42-inch vertical or a 42-inch, like you're running the hurdle, excuse me, if you're running a hurdle and you try and do it standing still, it's pretty hard. But if you have a running start, you can easily jump over it. Business, family, it's the same way. You create the momentum, you can easily jump over that hurdle. So I'd like to work with them on really recognizing how can we create some momentum.
Okay, thank you. That's awesome. And lastly, do you have any special offerings for our online communities at this
Yeah,
time?
yeah, of course. If they go to letsgowin.com, there's a free assessment for everybody on just work-life balance. I take it at least monthly because life happens. And I know this, if I'm way out of whack, let's say with my family life, it's hard to show up as the best employee I can be, or the best, for family member. And if I'm not taking care of my health, again, that's going to affect how I show up in business or as a father. So just checking in and making sure that you have these 10 areas of your life really being taken care of. And the last one is adventure hobby on that. Most people are like, oh, I don't have time for that. You don't have time not to take care of that, because you need to feed your mind, your body, and your soul. So all those 10 are wrapped up in that.
Okay, thank you. I'm excited to take the quiz. Is it a quiz? Sounds like
It's just an assessment. There's no right or wrong answers. It's really just being truthful with yourself. Where am I at in this area?
okay.
Because if it's not in alignment, you know how it goes. If one's out, it's none of it works together.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Work-life balance. I love that. Well, thank you again, JM, for joining us. We're delighted to have you.
Now, truly my pleasure. I appreciate it. I hope you guys got some good nuggets out of it and something you can use. So, Maureen, I appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the great work.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And we'll include the information on your website in the chat section. So that will be on there. So those of you that are watching today, if you're interested in participating here, we would love to have you. Or if you know of somebody that would be interested, we would love to hear from you as well. And until next time, aloha.